To start making Squeak, I first start out by getting a bunch of different colors of translucent clay, and then making a light bluish color. For this, I'm using translucent clay because the character itself is translucent. I then start by making a slight armature type thing out of a ball of aluminum foil, and then I cover it with a base of the translucent clay. Then I continue to bulk up the base layer and make it more flat, just by smoothing out all of the different bumps, seams, and other things. Although I had to flip the cutting mat I was using because translucent clay tends to rip out the stuff. I then added on both of the two legs onto the bottom part and squashed out their little feet just by pushing it down since they don't have individual toes. Once both feet were done, I placed it down onto the mat and started shaping out the feet. Then I pinched out two arms made with cylinders and started pinching out a thumb, and then after the thumb, I cut out each of the 4 fingers. The 4 fingers then got poked, prodded, and moved until they looked like 4 little finger stubs. And then I made sure that they were separate and good. After that, I added both of the 2 hands to the body and blended them in so that there was no seam. Then, once both of the hands were blended in, both of the arms, I then continued on to pushing in both of the, smoothing it out, and then pushing the mass of the upper arm down into the hands. I then made a darkish blue to prepare for the future. After that, I got 2 balls of the translucent clay and attached them and blended them into the top of the head. This makes out the hair, which technically isn't hair, but it's kind of that. Once both of them are fully blended in, I realized that they were too small, so I added in some extra translucent clay in order to make them more better. Then I fully blended them in and started making the mouth afterwards. To start making the mouth, I add in the tongue, and once the tongue is added on, I indent the tongue to get the indentation of the tongue. And then I make the little cat lip thingy. This is just poked until it looks like a pair of cool sunglasses. And then the top part of it is blended into the rest of the head, while the bottom is kept not blended into the rest of the head. This gets blended in until, like the arms, the legs, and the hair, there's no visible seam or indentation where they used to be, where it got attached, except for the bottom part, which stays how it is. Once the mouth is attached, I add in both of the 2 eyes, still using just a white translucent clay with a little bit of light blue added in, and then with the first part of non-translucent clay, I add in black for the eyes. Now that the actual character itself is done, I have to add in all the clothing, starting by making a bunch of different reds and maroons. To start, I make a medium, dark, and light version of the same thing, and then with the medium version, I make a little hat. This is just a button of clay with a half circle added to the center of the top. Once the hat is made, it's time to start working on the actual clothing, or I guess technically not clothing, just 2 navy blue straps added on both sides of the character. These get blended in, well, not blended in, it gets blended into itself and pushed into Squeak itself until it is flattened and not a coil anymore. In the hard-to-reach places, I flatten it with a tool because I couldn't reach under the hands, and then I add the second strap. Once the second strap is added, I start making a little button on the front part of the two straps where they intersect. I then add the black X on it, and then with a darker color of the maroon, I add it to the sides, blend it kind of in so that there's no obvious seam, and add that to the front. However, now is one of the harder parts, which is the 4 small little trinkets on the actual straps themselves. I first start with the water drop, which is just blue, pinched in at the top, flattened with a dark blue outline, and 2 small yellow, 2 black eyes. This gets pushed in on the right side of the button. Now with the yellow, I make a circle of yellow, flatten it, add a orangish yellow outline, and then I add 2 eyes and a mouth. Once the eyes and mouth are added, I place it in on the right side, on the right of the raindrop. Now, starting with the trinkets on the left, I make a bone with white, not cutting out, but indenting the 2 sides where the actual edges are of the bone. Then I indent the center, re-indent the sides because it was starting to get a little off. And then once the shape is decent, I add a gray outline around the entire bone. Once this outline is added, I make 2 small eyes, and then I have 2 angry eyebrows. I can't talk. And with those 2 angry eyebrows, it's kind of done with what I've showed, but later I do add a little frowny face. And I also do re-indent the center. This is placed on the far left. And now there's the dog thing. I couldn't really tell what it was, so I just made what it looked like, which is just a blue piece with 2 ears, a mouth, then indented teeth. Once that was added, I added a little the 2 eyes, and then an outline of black. And once the outline was completed and added to the thingy, I added a little triangle of the orangish onto the bottom. And then I added whiskers. Once all of those are added, I place it right next to the bone on the right of it. And then all of the little trinkets are done, and I have to make the little metal thing on the hat thingy. This is just a little shield type shape with indentations on the middle. Once those indentations are somewhat made, or even close to what they're supposed to look like, these weren't really that close, I added into the hat, and then I continued to make the indentations and added a little bit of the red back so that it looked correct. After that, I start to make the backpack, starting by making a blackish purple, and then making 2/3 of the backpack out of white, and then adding the final third out of the purplish black onto the bottom, making a oval type shape. Then I make a little tire out of a more purplish black color, and I make sure that the inside is actually correct. And then I cut in all of the different seams. With this, there are either 6 seams, 6 or 7, not too sure. But then I add a little bit of black on the back side, make sure that it looks correct, and then I place it onto the back of the backpack. After that, I add a small little button, starting with the gray and then the red, and then I add in some seams on the side of the backpack all the way around. I add a little nail, and then I remake the outline to go around the nail. And then once that's done, I add on the other side the little canister of the goop. This is just a dark gray piece, then a cylinder made out of the color used for the skin and body, and then the same purple used at the tire on top with a slight indent in the center because I felt like it. Once that's done, this gets added to the back, and now all that's left is a base, which is flattened from light blue and then placed onto the Squeak itself. And with that, it's finished.